Well, the 107-degree weather outside gives me a newfound respect for my HVAC system. So I'm gonna cool off inside with a glass of iced tea and questions that $5 supporters asked in the month of June. If you'd like to participate by asking a question this month for me to answer at the start of August, links are below. No questions on Patreon and just 2 on Subscribestar, so let's start with Dickin Myanus, who asks, why did the chicken cross the road? This, of course, is an incredibly important question humanity has been pondering and worth pouring considerable resources into answering. Living in the rural South, I had access to a lot of chickens to study about this question, so I asked one of them. He replied, "None of your business. Am I being detained?" I think he was a libertarian. I asked another chicken, and she said, "Don't ask me, it's your road." A rooster told me he was just trying to loosen his load because he had 7 hens on his mind. So I decided to put a bit of money into a polling company to study the question once and for all. You can help offset my costs by going to donate.bogosity.tv and help compensate me for this world-changing research. In a first-of-its-kind poll, 2,347 chickens were asked why they crossed the road. I'm proud to announce the results here for the first time. 24% replied they were going somewhere and the road was just in the way. 18% said they were looking for the worms the early birds missed. 12% admitted they couldn't actually remember. 7% said they were following another chicken, quote, who looked like they knew what they were doing. And 6% denied ever crossing a road and accused researchers of spreading misinformation. The remaining 33% couldn't be tabulated because the respondents ate the questionnaires, became distracted by a shiny thing someone had discarded on the sidewalk, or simply ran away. Many interesting demographic trends were uncovered. Older chickens described crossing the road as, quote, just something you did. Urban chickens said it was the best way to avoid cyclists because the road is even more dangerous for them. Roosters specifically answered, that's where the hens are, whereas the hens said, to get away from the roosters. Younger chickens expressed frustration from having to walk across the road and not being able to fly. Rural chickens were less likely to know what a road was and just thought it was a habitat for, quote, those big, roary, honky animals. Most respondents described the experience of crossing the road as stressful and ranked it would not recommend. The margin of error is plus or minus 3%, give or take an egg. So hopefully that clears up this question once and for all. Come back next month when we tackle an even larger question that has been plaguing mankind for centuries. Who let the dogs out? And FunwithFacts asks, what should libertarians do to be more successful policy-wise? Honestly, I think I preferred the chicken question. It was easier to find answers. One of the good things Doge did is show us exactly what we're in for. Every last little cut you do, even if it's completely obviously fraud, will result in attacks and hostage puppies and people losing their shit in courts and judges falling for it. Or in on it. Doge's aid cuts were based on a simple pulse check. Who is actually getting the funds and using them? Talk back to us. If they came back and said hi, they got to keep their funding. It was as simple as that. The attacks haven't abated, so Elon has been challenging people to come back with actual evidence of people being killed by US aid cuts. Apparently, there's been a grand total of 1 example that the left has pounced on. An ambulance somewhere in Africa ran out of diesel and the patient died. I wish I were making this up. With money laundering as blatant as that, and you can't even cancel it? And look at how they're losing their minds now that the Supreme Court has said the president is allowed to fire executive officers. They literally feel that most of the executive branch should be permanent employees who don't answer to the president. Of course, if you caught my latest podcast, you know that the Supreme Court basically said that applies everywhere except the place where it arguably matters the most, the Federal Reserve. Seriously, how do we get control of the money supply if even getting a libertarian elected president won't be enough to change things? This has all been laid out neatly before us. The deep state is not a conspiracy theory. In fact, I think I'd rather have the conspiracy theory version. It's a centralized authority that you could attack directly, but the real deep state is set up more like terrorist cells, a bunch of independent little groups that only work together through the standalone effect. And they have their people throughout Congress, the executive, and the courts. I even asked several AIs about this question, but they just gave me the same old answers. Focus on local races, run pragmatic candidates, form coalitions with other parties. You know, all the stuff we've tried for decades that hasn't worked at all. Claude at least recognized that the electoral system is rigged from the ground up, but didn't tell me anything I didn't already know and couldn't give any real solutions. The fact is, we're playing a rigged game, and the only way to win at a rigged game is to upend the board. So at least for now, the only thing I can think is to push even harder on educating the public. See, that's the thing. Libertarian ideas are not unpopular. If they were, Democrats and Republicans wouldn't keep stealing our talking points for their campaigns. Deficit cuts, criminal justice reform, occupational licensing reform, school choice, privacy rights, civil asset forfeiture reform, electoral reform, and skepticism of military intervention, just to name a few, all have received bipartisan support at one time or another, with no progress made at all as the national debt ticks towards $40 trillion. If we can get enough people to understand why that's the case, and from there show how all government is unethical and unjustifiable and harmful to humanity through and through, eventually, either by numbers or by hitting the right person who's smart enough to fix it, we'll get there. We lost a lot of the movement to Trump. We need to rebuild it on more principled grounds and keep growing and pushing until something gives. But although I'm not an accelerationist, I'm increasingly worried that these sociopaths are determined to keep their gravy train going up until the point it all collapses. I really hope it doesn't come to that. Well, that's it for another month, so thank you so very much for watching. Comments for the comment god, shares for the share throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell, and check out other videos on my channel and like and share them as well. And if you're watching on mobile, do a couple of swipes left and hit hype on those videos. That gets them a real push in the algorithms. And of course, donate.bogosity.tv keeps me doing what I do with PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, cryptocurrency, or become a regular supporter at Patreon, Subscribestar, or Discord to get these videos early and ad-free and participate in live streams and AMAs like this one. Thanks again, and until next time, stay strong and be free.